Hi, I'm LindaKozar, and welcome to Biohazards, How to Write a Toxic-Free Author Bio. Today, you're going to learn how to craft and style your own author bio to enhance and affirm your career as an author. And I had to stop to share my screen, but here I am back again. So toxic bios are hazardous, or they can be, not helpful to authors. Today, we're going to break down the elements of good bios, bad bios, and how to present your skills, attributes, and experience to your best advantage. By the end of this workshop, you'll have the elements you need to compose a practical personal biography and creative social media bios, along with tips for taking author headshots to the next level. Let's be honest. Are you happy with your present bio? Is it a mess or success? Your bio should be a snapshot of who you are, and it's more than a cover letter and resume. It's that and more. It's more than your educational or professional experience. A bio portrays how a person has applied what they know to what they do. In ancient Greece, the ancient Greeks had a custom of hospitality when it came to strangers. They would be welcomed into their home, disarmed, of course, offered a bath, and given the best seat at the table, offered food, drink, and entertainment. After all these practical needs were met, the stranger would be asked two questions. Who are you, and what is the purpose of your journey? Now, those two questions are still valid and immutable in our human need to understand one another. Ask yourself those two questions as a writer. Who are you as a writer? And what do you hope to accomplish on your writing journey? So if you want to be your best, look to those who are living their best life as successful authors. Let's deconstruct some famous author bios. We're going to start with Jon Krakauer, who wrote Into the Wild. You might be familiar with that one, among many other works. Now, notice he starts off by sharing his most prestigious award with you, and that would be the Academy Award in Literature. I've colored the fonts in red that I wanted you to focus on. Now, he starts off by showing this most prestigious award, which if you won the Academy Award in Literature, you would highlight that right at the front end, wouldn't you? So this, no doubt he's had many awards. Most of these authors have brought home many, many awards. But this one is the pinnacle award for him. And he sticks with that. And he lists the award citation below that. And it's a solid quote from the award, which in itself is a masterful description and justification for his win. But it's also a fantastic selling point. Everyone's heard of Tony Robbins. You've been living under a rock if you haven't. But he lists himself not just as any author, but a best-selling author, an entrepreneur, and a philanthropist, in that order. And you'll find that most of these best-selling authors list their philanthropy at the back end of their bio. Okay, so next he shares his title as the nation's #1 life and business strategist and why. And he ends with sharing some of his philanthropic work. I don't suppose you could be an effective philanthropist unless you had achieved a high level of success in order to sustain that. But not everyone would have the desire, but maybe once you reach a crazy level of success, that's what's next. Maybe it's not enough, and maybe you have the desire to do something that satisfies your soul. And of course, tax credits don't hurt either. You can get a nice tax break by your giving. But I think it's more than that. I really do think they desire to give back. James Patterson, he lists himself as the world's best-selling author, like the world's best cup of coffee maybe, and most trusted storyteller. Now, This could be a self-imposed title. We don't know. There's really no way of knowing. But he has created, as he lists here, many enduring fictional characters and titles. So next, he does something a little different. He lists some characters that are pretty famous and the titles. And yes, he has written some books with former President Bill Clinton. So he's achieved many levels of success. And then his philanthropy, his charity work, he's given over 3 million books to schools and the military. So he goes on to talk about that. And then his awards are at the back end. But why? Because they tie in to his charitable work. The National Book Foundation presented him with a Literarian Award for Outstanding Service. And then he has the Edgar Award listed, but they tie in with his charitable work, his philanthropy. So it works. And then he has a little personal thing about him at the end. He lives in Florida with his family. It's kind of innocuous, but it's a little personal tidbit that he shares. Dean Koontz. Now, Dean Koontz starts off with a fond memory of his own, and he tells a story because he's a storyteller. So he tells a story about when he was a senior in college and he won a fiction competition, and he's been writing ever since. Now he goes straight into how he sold over 500 million copies of his books in 38 languages. And then he tells you about how many of his novels rose to #1 on the New York Times hardcover bestseller list, etc., and how many countries they're in. And then he goes into some reviews from the New York Times and the New Orleans Times-Picayune and Rolling Stone. But he's not done. This is an example of a long bio. So next he goes back into the past again, but back further, how he was born and raised in Pennsylvania. And he shares a memory about how he spent some time in the Appalachian Poverty Program. And so he shares that memory and how it affected his life. And then he goes into personal info about his wife, Gerda, and how she made him a promise. I will support you for 5 years. If you can't make it as a writer in that time, you'll never make it. Whoa, harsh words, but I guess she was supporting him. So by the end of those 5 years, she quit her job to run the business end of his career. So everything worked out great. So he does list where he lives, his wife, Gerda, again, their pet, Elsa. And also he shares something a little unusual about himself. He mentions his Goldens, Trixie, and Anna, who crossed the Rainbow Bridge. So it shows that there's another side of him. He's very sensitive about his pets. He's very close to them. Mitch Albom. Now this one resonated with me because he does something that I've done in my bio, which you'll see later. The author of numerous books of fiction and nonfiction. I list that in the beginning of my bio, so I kind of felt good about that. But then he dives straight into how his books have sold more than 40 million copies in 47 languages. Now, I wish I could say that too, but you never know. And he's written 7 #1 New York Times bestsellers, including, of course, Tuesdays with Morrie. That's what he's known for, and most people have heard of that one. And the best-selling memoir of all time. I don't think he's exaggerating that. And he tells you that he has written award-winning TV films, stage plays, screenplays, a nationally syndicated newspaper column, and a musical. Then he goes into his most recent work, which is fine to do in your bio, as long as you update it for every latest release. And it's not hard to do. You just have to keep up with it. He ends with his charitable work, his philanthropy, and how he opened an orphanage in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And then he lists his links to his website and charitable sites that he's involved with. So we would all love to add lots of things to our bios. And honestly, we should have 3 author bios. One would be a laundry list of just everything you can pack in there, without being too long. and a medium-sized one, and then a 50 words or less one, kind of a three bears, Goldilocks kind of thing. You want to have those three sizes. The one that will be used most often will be the 50 words or less when you speak, or have some other functions you're involved in. 50 words or less works really well, although sometimes the medium one is the one certain places like better. The long one is going to be more for your website, but you want to have three different sizes because one size does not fit all. Now, the extras, you can add to your website things that are personal about yourself, little tidbits, communicate the deeper things you want to say on your website or blog. You want layers for readers to unpeel and discover. Now, update and change your website every year, but here you see Mitch Albom, he has personal pictures of himself, a photo gallery. He has some books that are his favorite movies, and you can see he's big into music. So that's something you can do. And then I pulled up my website. Now you see, I can say I'm an award-winning author, but then I list my awards under my bio. That's on the front page. Now I also have a Media Kit speaking thing here that people can go to grab one of 6 author headshots I have for myself, and grab the bio they want, or little bits of information about me, such as 10 things you never wanted to know about me. I wrote kind of a funny 10 things you never wanted to know about me. And it's just these little things that people might find humorous or interesting. Like I like to put black olives on my fingers and eat them. Everybody has strange little quirks about themselves, and it can be kind of fun if that's the sort of thing you write. If what you're writing is more professional, then maybe you want to take a different approach. So what have we learned so far? The common components of what we've learned about writing your author bio is to list your awards front end. Then tell people how successful you are and for how long. How many books have you written? Are you part of the $1 Million Seller Club or more? Well, add that, definitely. That's going to enhance your bio dramatically. Quotes or stellar reviews, yes. Share a little about your most popular book or characters or your latest release, if those are well known. If they're not well known, don't do that yet. That's something to ease into as you garner success. Brag on your philanthropy, talk a little about that. And I don't mean just brag. You may just want to share so that people can donate to your charity and help people as well. Where are you from? Where do you live? People like to know that, oh, he's from California. Yeah, I'm from California. Or, he's married. Oh, I'm married too. He has 2 children. She has 3 children. People like to know this sort of thing. Add something personal about your life. Like Kuntz, he talked about his pets who cross the Rainbow Bridge. He misses them. He loves animals. You can tell. So, and also I'll learn more about social media contact info so that people can find you. If they're interested in you, then they want to know a little bit more about you. So author bios, there are plenty out there. And in fact, my first one, which I'm going to share later, was pretty awful. Now this person takes it to a new level. I'm not sure if it is a real person or this is a fictional thing, but I X'd out the name, and I hope I don't offend. But this author says, I write because I breathe. And yes, we can relate to that as writers. But just as in your writing, if you're writing a book, especially a fiction story, things have to move along. And if they're not moving the story along, then they are not working for your book. If they're not moving the story along, then they're extraneous words. And you have to think that way also about your bio. I write because I breathe. No, you can replace that with something more useful. I write in many genres. Well, first of all, no spelling errors. Don't have any spelling errors. Make sure your sentence structure is good and make every word count. Now, this person tells about how many states they've moved to in the course of their life. And that would be pertinent if you were a travel writer, maybe. But if not, then no, probably not. You can talk about your pets at the end in your personal part, but then this person goes into a lot of odd things that I guess they're supposed to be funny, like running the styrofoam boat races, knitting snap-on extension panels for leg warmers. You know, stick with something that people can relate to. Stay tuned for my next book. Okay, if you're going to say that, then give a month and year, give a release date and maybe a buy link. That is more helpful to you than saying, oh, stay tuned for my next book, because people don't know when that's going to be. They want to hear when it is and maybe go and check out the cover if it's something they can, pre-order. Okay, next, Quirk can work for you. I once waited in a very long line at Barnes & Noble to meet Lemony Snicket at a book signing, and he did not disappoint. He is very quirky and very fun and outrageous, and I love that. Lemony Snicket has ridden the rails, gotten off track, and lost his train of thought. His investigative research has been collected and published in books, including those in a series of unfortunate events and all the wrong questions. Then there's my friend Carla Hoke, who's written Fight Right, How to Write Believable Fight Scenes, which is a fantastic book. Now, she starts off in the beginning, with basic stuff about how, her book teaches that, how to write believable fight scenes in your work. And this book is focused primarily on writers, and writers are they're a unique group of people and we can appreciate humor, hence the rest of her bio. So she writes, she is the host of the Fight Right podcast. I'm going all the way to the end. And as far as you know, not working with cats in their evil plot to overtake the world. Now, what does that mean? The second part of her bio, which is long, and this is the long one that you'll find on her site. Moments before the destruction of her home planet, Carla's parents jettisoned her and her twin brother to Earth. He was taken in by a kindly farmer in Kansas, while she was embraced by a rather liberal clouder of feral cats in Houston, Texas. While still a toddler, she bid farewell to her feline family and headed to Pace, Florida, a small hamlet just outside Pensacola. There, she raised herself on a hollowed-out tree trunk and taught herself to speak fluent Southern, ride out a hurricane like a pro, and tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi by fizz alone. As an adult, she fulfilled the dream of all feral cats and became a Spanish teacher and track coach. After nearly a decade in the classroom, she met a military cyborg who promptly married her and whisked her away to such exotic locations as Virginia and New Mexico. Now a mother of twins herself, she and her husband have returned to the People's Holy Republic of Texas and reside not far from where her pod originally landed. Unlike her twin Clark, Carla found her powers late in life. She was first introduced to them through a Hapkido-based self-defense class. From there, she went on to train in MMA, Muay Thai style kickboxing, Taekwondo, street defense, Filipino martial arts, Judo, Aikido, and Aikido. Carla is currently a student of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, part of the writing team for Black Belt magazine, Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, so that is, she asked me if she should change that, and I said, no way. Every writer will appreciate a bio like that. And she can get away with it because she writes in a quirky style, and her podcast fits in with that. So if you can do it, Quirk can work for you. Social media bios. I'll bet you thought you were going to get off with just writing a long, a medium, and a 50-word short bio. But no, you need social media bios as well. And they need to be short and to the point, but they need to blend in. They need to be branded with the rest of your bios. They need to fit in and tell the world who you are. So they need to be custom fit, yes. And This goes back to those two questions I asked in the beginning. Decide who you are and what you want to say on your writing journey. Don't waste words. Just dump those words. Don't waste words. Make every word count. So Instagram bios, humorous. I'm using these as examples because you can use humor to your advantage. People love a good laugh or a good tongue-in-cheek, and that might attract them to want to know more about you as an author. You might write something serious, but you might want to attract people to your Instagram account with something a little humorous. So here are some fantasy ones, basically, that people have written. Cowardly Lion, formerly king of the forest, now personal life coach and author of The Courage Trap, helping you discover your inner lion. Likes, poppies, good witches, and Toto. Dislikes, flying monkeys, brooms. Darth Vader, community manager for Sith Lord, but tweets are my own. Asthmatic, dad to two rambunctious Jedis, loves scrapbooking, Beyonce, and galactic domination. Now, Casey Musgraves is a singer, and what she says about herself just encapsulates who she is as a performer, properly yeehawing since 1988. And it fits her perfectly, and she has a link down below that. Now, Instagram authors, some of these you might be familiar with, hopefully. James Rubart, 28-year-old trapped inside an older man's body. That tells you he's young at heart. And, it's just a little personal thing he adds at the beginning that's kind of humorous. It's kind of fun. Then it goes into best-selling Christie Award Hall of Fame author with his website address and his latest release with a buy link. Smart. And it really works perfectly. Sarah Sundin. Now, she tells you up front that she is best-selling and award-winning, and then she tells you what she writes. Her niche is World War II novels. And then her latest release, she gives you the name, she gives you the month, she gives you the year of release, and a buy link. Allie Pleiter. She starts off with something a little innocuous, an inspirational fiction author, but it's kind of like on Amazon when you break down the genre and the subgenres. She starts with inspirational fiction, not limiting herself because she's a cozy mystery author, but maybe she's not just a cozy mystery author. Then an enthusiastic speaker, not just any speaker, enthusiastic creativity and productivity coach, and a knitter, but not just a knitter, a dangerously obsessive knitter. Now, Jay Shetty to the right, you can tell he is likely a filmmaker. Filmmakers list themselves often as storytellers and creators. He's got a huge following, some kudos, and he used to be a monk. Now, if you'll notice, he uses all these cool emojis right here, and I'm going to be showing you the links to that. You can take a picture of the links, off of this slideshow and hopefully explore them. Unintentionally funny accounts, we've all come across these. I'm using these as, be a warning to others. These people are warnings to us of what not to do. Like, don't use social media to your disadvantage by saying unpleasant things about unpleasant people in your life. And don't be innocuous. Eileen likes seafood, I guess, but what does that mean? And then this person, of course, I can kind of relate to this. Don't send me a message asking how I am or calling me dear. Yes, I agree. Number 6 on this is my favorite, but I can't see how this helps anybody. Nothing like this would help someone in their writing career. Don't study me, you won't graduate. I do like that. So adding the Instagram oomph, how do you do that? So to the right, you'll see the links I was telling you about, where you can add fonts and symbols and numerous, multiple links. Because you can't add that many without using this. And then captions and stuff. So if you want to add that oomph, utilize these links right here. Now for Instagram, it's 330 words. Share your interest. Have a call to action, like sign up for my course or free download. People love free downloads. And if you have like maybe a free course, you could do that to attract readers and fans. A DM for info, a DM info or buy link section. Show, don't tell, just like with your regular writing, show, don't tell. Focus on what you're good at. Avoid those cliches. Be original. You're a writer. After all, you can come up with something. What's in it for your reader? The thing is, what's in it for them? Think like a reader. What would you want? Change up your bio ever so often. Keep it fresh. All right, so I'm not sure what happened here, but I'm going to the next one. Okay, Twitter bios, 160 characters, short but interesting. Front end the best of what you have. Don't save the best for last. Don't use quotes. How can people learn about you from someone else's quote? And don't use cliche words like guru, maven, expert, or ninja. Don't sell the product, sell you. If you're part of a family tree, that's like, famous people or famous politician or sports star or whatever. If you want to capitalize on that name and it's certainly okay with the person, then hey, I'm not going to judge you, and I don't think anybody would, as long as you've got the talent to back it up. And no cussing words. That's the easy way to go, but it's not very respectful of people. We say cussing in Texas. We don't say curse words, so I think it's a law. I decided to write my own funny Twitter bio, hopefully funny. Hirsute him, tree hugger, coy, cryptid, sassy yet squatchy. Catch me if you can. It's a good exercise just to do it, and it's kind of fun. Now, celebrity Twitter bios. Things have changed a lot with all the censoring and bot farms and all that on Twitter. And there's not as much sparkle and fun as there used to be. Twitter can be a desperate place, but I decided for nostalgia's sake to add some of these people that I used to follow. Like the Dark Lord, running around, leaving stars, collecting my jar of hearts and tearing love apart. He was a master of insults on Twitter, and that's why I enjoyed him. Tom Hanks, Shonda Rhimes. I make up stuff for a living. Yeah, like most shows on television, on network television, and her TED Talk link. I love to the right here, living vicariously through myself. Some of these were pretty fun. Facebook author bios. So Robin Lee Hatcher, if hopefully you're familiar with, she starts off with her tagline. The thing you have to do with your Facebook author bios, and I'm talking about what goes like under your picture, tagline style, short and to the point and catchy. So she starts off by saying how many novels and novellas she's written. And then her awards include the Rita, the Christie, and the Carol. She's written novels and novellas. She writes fiction, and those are fiction awards, so they go together like beans and rice. Rachel Hoke, New York Times, USA Today best-selling author. You notice she doesn't write the word and. She saves space, just a comma. Best-selling author, not just any author, and she includes a quote from herself. I write the kind of books I love to read. Now we're going to talk about author headshots, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, and an author headshot should tell a story about who you are. I started naming my chapters with my very first book because I realized that titling a chapter is just an extra way of attracting a reader to keep on reading your chapters. They might be tired. It might be 4 a.m, but they might want to keep reading your book because the chapter title is so intriguing. It can be a teaser, or it can encapsulate what's coming in the chapter, but you can use that to your advantage. And author headshot is like that, in my opinion. An author headshot should reveal something about you that people want to explore more in your bio. They might want to look at you and say, wow, this person is interesting. Or, you write in a certain genre, and so you've taken a picture that corresponds to that. I remember suspense author Brenda Collins years ago took kind of a scary picture of herself, and it was just kind of fun, and it was kind of odd, and it was intriguing, and it made you want to open her books and or just read more about her. So I suggest you do that. And say you're writing a book about pets, you might want to include your pet in the picture with you. If you're writing fantasy, include a background that works with that. Do you want to go professional, playful, quirky, creative? If you want to have some really kind of artsy photo, I mean, you can buy a backdrop that's a black background and then wear a black turtleneck so just your neck and your face show. I mean, that looks cool. Now, good lighting is everything, and it literally is everything. Of course, a little makeup doesn't hurt either, but good lighting makes everyone look better. So I would suggest that if you can, you invest in a diva light, and the image of that is next. The camera will love you. If you can't afford a big diva light, which mine cost me years ago, I'm on my second one now. My initial one probably cost me $150, and I used it so much. I love to take author headshots of my author friends and Bible study ladies, and I just love doing that for people. I love making people feel like they look good or they're beautiful, and just to give them a sense of better self-esteem about themselves, and to know they have a good social media picture they can use, or headshot. So my first one was kind of falling apart. The stand on it broke, and I duct taped a broken broom handle to hold it up, but that didn't look very professional. So I decided to wait for Amazon Prime Day, and I picked up a new one for $125. So that's a strategy if you'd like to save for one and pick one up at a really good price at a really good time. Also, you can take, now the $10 clip-on version is the other way to go. It clips right to your phone, and you can take professional photos anywhere. Now, most of our phones now, you can take decent photos. You can take fantastic photos, honestly, with your phone camera. Now, I would suggest always using the editing option on your phone, or investing in a good photo editing app or two. I love Facetune. You can whiten your teeth, smooth things out, smooth out the color. But Lensa is another great one because it does all that for you, or you can do it individually. I just love the way people look, including me, with Lensa. So choose your backdrop, as we talked about, background. You can order those online. You can order some really cool ones, and even seasonal ones. If you have a Christmas book coming out, get a seasonal backdrop and take some pertinent pictures for your author headshot for when that book comes out. Now, another thing to do is to move your head slightly forward and stick your chin out a bit, like not too much, or it looks weird. Get rid of this will get rid of your chin and neck wrinkles if you have them. It just makes everybody look better, even if you're young. Okay, extra advice for other pics. If you pose for a full body shot, position yourself to the side, 1 foot slightly forward, with your hand to the side or on your hip if you're a lady. So lift the camera or phone as high as you can and point it down at the subject, which is you. Now, if someone else is taking your picture, I would suggest having them stand on something that is not wobbly and stand on something and take a picture of you from the height they're at, because everyone looks better if the camera is pointing down at you. You just look instantly better. It's magic. What can I say? But with a little practice and a long arm, you can take excellent selfies of yourself. I mean, all it takes is practice. And the great part is you can take 50 shots of yourself, and maybe one or two out of that are going to work for you. And then you'll edit those, of course. But I mean, and you can erase all those 50 shots, just take shot after shot, and until you see one that works for you. Then the last thing you should do is show your favorite headshots to your favorite edited headshots to people who will give you their honest opinion. And we all know people who will give you their honest opinion. Now, the diva light is here, and what you can't see is like right here there's a little clip-on thing right there where your camera, your phone goes, and you can take your picture. You can set it on a timer and just pose and do the modeling thing. The first pictures you take, everybody's always kind of stiff in their pictures. That you don't loosen up until you have taken at least half a dozen or more, and you just start having fun behind the camera. Now this is the clip-on, and it does work great. I have one of those too. I had to try it. And you can take a picture on the go. Keep it in your purse, keep it in your car. It works. So evolution of a bio. I did promise you that the bio on my first book, Misfortune Cookies, was awful. And it is. I look at it now and I think, oh gosh, I wasn't thinking at all. But when you get your first contract, you don't even read the contract, if you're me, that is. But a lot of new authors, you'll just say, where do I sign? You're going to sign it and you're not going to care for your first contract. After that is when you start caring. But I didn't much care. I didn't give any thought to my author bio either, because I was new to the whole idea of being an author. So I just said, LindaKozar lives in the Woodlands, Texas with her husband, Michael, daughters, Katie and Lauren, and Patches, a rat terrier princess. So there. But thankfully I moved on. And there were many morphs of my bio since then. But a couple of years ago, I settled on this, and I still like it for my Medium bio. LindaKozar writes for both traditional and indie markets, describes herself like a frosted mini wheat, fiction on one side and nonfiction on the other. She writes devotional books and mystery series, as well as standalone historical and contemporary romance novels. Married for 31 years to her husband, Michael. Okay, I go into my personal stuff, and then see, we've moved on because Patches crossed the Rainbow Bridge, and now we have Gypsy. LindaKozar. Okay, this is one that came after that, because of course I can't leave my bios alone. I have to keep playing with them, and I decided I wanted to reduce my bio into 50 words. Now this is clearly like double that amount. And so I need to do some trimming. LindaKozar is an award-winning, multi-published author of traditional and indie published fiction and nonfiction books, novellas, and short stories, speaker and podcaster. I threw that in there. And then I won some awards this year. First place Sella for devotions at Blue Ridge Mountains Christian Writers Conference, and I got Nonfiction Book of the Year. So those were really cool awards for me to win. I was thrilled. And so award winning, and then I list those. So it's kind of redundant. And then I list the organizations I belong to, like ACFW, Christian Authors Network, Kai Libris, and ASA. And then I go into my personal stuff. Now that's a lot of stuff. Maybe I don't need. So then I changed it, as you see, in red, from cozy mysteries to historical romance and devotionals. But I left everything else. But that's still not enough to cut. I need to cut more. Okay, so I cut and I cut, and I finally came to a 50-word bio precisely, which made me really happy. LindaKozar is an award-winning, multi-published author of traditional and indie published fiction and nonfiction books with a Southern flair. Linda and her husband Michael live in the Woodlands, Texas, and enjoy spending time with their 2 grown daughters, their wonderful son-in-law, granddaughter Eden, and Gypsy, their rascally Jack Russell Terrier. A bit of personal stuff at the end. Now, this I think works for me. Will I play with it another day? Of course I will. Flair. Then I started obsessing over flair. Is that okay? Should I use that word? Because I obsess about words all the time. Should it be panache, brio, flourish? Nah, those are too fancy. So I stuck with flair. So my point is to distill your bios into 100 proof information, because this is what people want to know about you. They want information about who you are as a professional and as a regular person. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, if thou return, then will I bring thee again, and thou shalt stand before me. And if thou take forth the precious from the vial, thou shalt be as my mouth. Let them return unto thee, but return not thou unto them. From Jeremiah 15:19. Extract the precious from the vial. I stuck on that one line from this scripture, and I use it in my personal and professional life to extract what is precious from the vial. From your bio standpoint, take the good stuff and skim out all the dross and let it be like gold to help you and further your career along. And in your personal life, extract the precious from what people say. Sometimes people say things that can be cutting or mean, but take what's precious out of what they said. Is something true? Well, extract the precious from the vial. And here we are at the end with a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Great geniuses have the shortest biographies. And that is true. And what I'm going to do here, is I'm going to pull up my picture, and I'm going to share some questions that people had about this. And the first question is, okay, how can I word my bio if I'm not even published yet and I have no awards or anything? How can I word my my biography when I don't have much to say? Well, the thing to do is list the positives. What do you write? List what you write. What experience do you have to back that up? If you're writing mysteries, are you a former police officer? Do you have experience in that realm? Were you an investigative reporter? Something like that to kind of back it up. So use that experience. Are you a licensed social worker and you're writing a nonfiction book? Well, that qualifies you in a way. Not that you have to be, but it's something to kind of back up what you're writing about. So think about that, and you have to start off small. Believe me, over time, if you continue in your writing career, you're going to have too much to add, and you're going to start paring things down. So that's a good problem to have right now. Second question: should I embellish my bio to be more appealing? No. Doesn't work for resumes. I know people who have gotten jobs because they embellished their resumes. But when you get there, you may get the job, but when you get there, people soon discover that you're just all hot air. So just be truthful. The truth does set you free, and stick with that. Third question: how often should I update my bio? And I say as often as you need to. As often as you have a new book, as often as you win an accolade or an award, add it in there, because you can, and why not? And you should update your author headshot at least once a year too, by the way, because I've seen people on social media, and I've seen their pictures for years, not change. And then you might go to a conference and you see them, and it's like, whoa, you don't look like your picture, but then your picture's got to be at least 10 years old. So change your picture up every year so people will recognize you, um, and change up your bio as often as you have to do that. So thank you so much for being here today and spending time. And I would love to hear how your bios you've redone have changed your thoughts about things, or listening to this has changed how you're going to do your bio. And you can certainly contact me on social media and tell me what you think. Thanks a lot.